I met Dave Brandt at a National Association of Conservation District meeting a year ago out in Denver, and got the opportunity to sit and visit with him for about 4 hours. Was very impressed, and so came home wanting to bring him to South Dakota. And fortunately, that all worked out so we could do that. So I thank him for coming. We got him up in Ipswich last night, spoke to about 97 people, so we had a great turnout. We're making good use of him. So David Brandt is a soil health pioneer who farms in Fairfield County in central Ohio. He began no-till farming in 1971. Now think about that. That was the first year I planted a crop, and I'm an old man. And has been using cover crops since 1978. David has participated in yield plots for corn, soybeans, and wheat into various cover crops. David has received numerous awards for conservation practices. So would you please welcome my friend David.
I got this. I think I'm on. Well, thank you very much. It's great to be in South Dakota. I've had a great time the last day or two just driving around. It was great to leave Ohio. We started Christmas Eve at -2 degrees below zero, and as of this morning, we've not been above zero since then. So it was a pleasure to come to Florida. When I got out of the plane and it was about 6 or 7 degrees, I thought it was warm here. You know, when I left, we had 9 inches of snow, and made it a little difficult to get around, but we got here and had a good time, you know. A little bit about our operation. We're a corn, soybean, wheat farmer with cover crops after everything but the wheat, because we don't have to have time to have a cover crop between soybean planting and winter wheat. We grow soft red winter wheat. Then after that, we put our large blended cover crops in after the wheat because we need more time to get the roots to development to do the things we want them to do in our soils in Ohio. I think I like to talk about diversity. For 30 years, I used single species because I knew no different. No one told me we could do anything different. I mean, we don't plant corn and soybeans and wheat the same year in the same field, so, you know, I just figured you had to do one species. In '96, we started with 2, and we'll talk about that later. And in 2001 and 2002, we went to multiple species. When we went to multiple species, what we saw was that we saw our water infiltration increase. We saw organic matter going up quicker. We saw smaller and smaller wet holes in the field. And things were just a lot easier, and it made it more fun, you know. So we want to talk about diversity. And I think that's what we need to think about diversity, especially in today's commodity prices. What are we going to do with $3 corn and $9 or $8 soybeans? And how are we going to beat this racket if we're buying the most elite corns that's costing us $300 to $350 a unit, and we got seed cost of $120 to $150 an acre? You know, half of your profit's gone before you ever get to crop planted. So we'll try to do some things that happened. This is a farm we rented 2 years ago. It was 10-year CRP. We farmed it before it went in CRP. This guy was a computer analyst for Apple. Bought this farm, so we farmed 5 or 6 years for him. They come out with a filter strip, and I talked the young man into putting a filter strip on the farm and give him the money for doing that. Lo and behold, he went to the ASC office, the Natural Resource Office. And the next thing I know, he called me and he says, I just signed it up in CRP because they're going to pay me $236 an acre. So we parted our ways, and I said, thank you. And so 2 years ago it was coming out, and he says, will you come and do it? And I want you to do it with no-till. You know, well, I went to the NRCS office after having blue stem growing and weeds and thistles and trees and everything else you can imagine. And I went to the office and I says, it's coming out in September. This was in July. I says, I would like to get permission, either from the state office or from the federal office, to go out there and kill those 10-year-old species that's there with a herbicide and plant a cover crop. Well, what do you want to do that for, David? I says, everybody that comes out plows in Ohio. When they plow that soil or do tillage, most generally they use 25 to 30 tons of soil per acre per year after that. So why do we have it in a 10-year CRP program? To stop erosion. They lost more the first year than they saved in the 10 year the program was there. I wanted to show them we could do it. So this was what was there come 17. And that happens to be rye, winter peas, hairy vetch, crimson clover. In the fall we had a few sunflowers in there, and we had some lupin and stuff that didn't make it, you know. But there's 5 or 6 species there. So here we're growing it, you know, getting along pretty good. We had a wet spring, so we didn't get it planted the 1st of May. According to the Ohio State, we lost yield because we didn't plant till June the 1st because it was just too wet. So what happened to that cover? It went from 4 foot to 6 foot. It went from 10,000 pounds of biomass to 28,000 pounds of biomass. We tried planting green. I like to plant green because when you're done planting and you see all the cover crop leaning over, you know you got it done. If you look over the top of the field and you see some standing, you miss something, so you go back and plant there, you know. But it was so thick that every 500 feet we were making 300-pound round bales with a marker arm, you know, breaking shoe bolts. And, you know, I like to ride in a tractor with an air conditioning. And after getting up and down out of that step 36 times in 2 hours, I was done. So I called my wife and I says, bring the crop roller and let's see what happens. So this is my wife on a 30-20. This was the first tractor I bought when I started no-till in 1971. It still runs today. The tachometer's turned over 3 times on it, so I don't know how many hours it is. It's a bunch of hours. And we're pulling a 30-foot crop roller with it. Just to show you how nice it is, here we go. And we're rolling this crop down. Now, the crop has to be in boot stage or bloom. The farther mature it is, the better it works. When you have 28,000 pounds of biomass on the surface, we didn't need to use a herbicide. We didn't need to use a burn down herbicide because that crimper crimps that stalk every 4 inches. It's in reproduction stage, so it dies. You know, the hairy vetch died because it was purple. You'll see hairy vetch. You'll see how this works. It's a chevron type roller. This roller weighs 75 pounds per running fluid roller. You know? But look at the carpet and the thatch that we're laying down. You know. Was real impressed with how it works. We roll this down and we plant. We pull a soil sample the day we plant. We send a sample to Rick Haney. It takes a day and a half to get it there by fast air freight. 3 days later, he's emailed me back, Brandt, and he says, in this field, we're showing you have 276 pounds of nitrogen, 84 pounds of phosphorus, 450 pounds of potash. My recommendation is you don't need to use any fertilizer. Guess what? We didn't. You know. So here's what it looks like, you know. That's 4 inches of thatch that you have to cut through. Can you do it? I guess so. Here we are. I want you to look at this tractor. This is the last field we planted. We planted 412 acres of corn before we got to this field. And it hasn't rained, and we haven't washed that tractor or planter. What does it show you? We don't have to plant in the dust. We don't have to change the air cleaner. That tractor operates at about 8 gallons per hour pulling this planter in cover crop. If we go to my uncle's conventional field where we plant corn for him, we use 13 gallons an hour. Why? Because it pulls easier. We got residue on the surface. So we're saving about 4 gallons an hour. That's $16 an hour. If we're planting 10 acres an hour, that's $1.60 an acre savings. Part of the way to pay for the cover crop seed. You know. We've got all the latest attachments in the barn in the pile. Now we just run a 13 wavy coulter with rubber press wheels in the back, about 125 pounds of down pressure on the closing wheels, about 213 pounds of pressure on the fluted coulter. Can we cut the residue? There's the fluted coulter. Look how nice it's working. How clean it is. No dust or soil sticking to the planter to speak of, you know. Again, the press wheels. No soil being moved. You can't where we've seen where we planted. Now we're losing less than 100 pounds of soil per acre per year off of this farm. Guess what that meant to Dave Brandt? Average soil loss in Ohio, and I think it's nationwide, is about 4.4 ton per acre. If we have to buy a ton of topsoil to fix the problem, it costs us $42 a ton. You know? Of course, farmers aren't buying it, but we're losing 4 ton. Just imagine every year you're spending $160 to replace that 4 ton of erosion you've had from wind erosion or water erosion. Here we don't have it. So guess what? How much nutrients have we saved? You know? I wish we could erode our subsoil. I mean, I don't care if the subsoil blows away, it ain't worth nothing. But I sure don't want the topsoil to blow away or wash away, you know? Just to show you what you're planting, everybody says, well, David, you gotta roll the same way you plant. How do you do that? Well, I don't know. So if you look, it's rolled opposite the way we're planting. As long as that plant lays on the ground, it's not a problem. If it springs back up, guess what? That's a 2.5-hour job with a pocket knife cutting the rye off those shafts. You know, it can be a problem, but you learn to manage it. You know, we've not spent 6 hours in the field doing tillage. You know? What I do, I spend 6 hours in the field walking, looking, trying to figure out what's going on, figuring out how to make this planter work better. You know? What do we see? We see the cover crops retaining the moisture. When it gets dry, it brings moisture up from the subsoil. I see lots of benefits for cover, you know, if we can get them established. This is 28,000 pounds of biomass after planting. It's not hairpinned. Now, if we would have rolled that a week ahead, it wouldn't have cut it. It would have just pushed it down in the soil. So you need to learn how to use the equipment we have available. You know, you don't put a burn down herbicide on 2 weeks before you want to plant because it turns it light blue. It's like the noodles you try to eat in your plate. You can't cut them with a knife. You have to roll them up on your fork because that's what happens. They get soft and the coulters won't cut them. You know, here it is. Look at that, how it's cut that residue. Opened the seed slot up. Probably not pushed it quite shut, and I don't care. I got residue on the surface. I don't have to worry about the wind drying out the soil. I don't have to worry about sunlight, you know. It all works when you roll the crop down. Here's a little bit later. What I want you to notice is look how dark green that corn is at the first true leaf. You can't find conventional corn that's that green. When it first comes up, it's always pea yellow. Usually because the soil's cold, it's wet, it's damp. You'll notice there's no holes in the leaves. Guess why? We have 3,336 beneficial insects in all our fields, and only 20 harmful ones. Why do we want to use a fungicide or insecticide to kill everything? As we go with cover crops, we can start reducing some of the things we do to protect our crops. Here's a little bit later. Here's another shot of it. Look at that corn. No starter fertilizer, no nitrogen, and dark green. 20 degrees cooler, this soil, than my neighbor's conventional soil. So what does that mean when the sun is 100 degrees or 90 degrees, and that soil is 76 degrees, and my neighbor's soil is 110? You know, his plant went into defensive mode when it went to 100 degrees. His organisms in the soil shut down because at 97 degrees, all movement in the soil ceases. Here, we're still active. You know, here's the ground thermometer. This year, we only had one day that we got 92 degrees. This was a day. Our soil temperature was 78 degrees, about 12 degrees cooler. Guess what we see as we have this mulch on the surface and we have a rainfall event? And I don't know, I've talked about normal. You guys must be lucky out here to have normal years. I haven't seen one for 10 years. You know, I used to think about having a rainfall event where you went out and you fed the cattle and you sure got damp all day long because it was a nice shower. Now what we have a 6-inch rainfall event that lasts 35 minutes and everything's drowned. We never have one of those nice gentle rains that tend to soak in. In this case, when you get the raindrop hitting that residue, guess what? There's no soil splashing. There's no problems putting disease on our plants of corn or beans because of the problems of the soil, you know. So in essence, what we see healthier crops, you know. This happens to be a field we didn't roll. We put a half a pint of Riboxone on it, burn it off, and that's our herbicide program. Now, if we get winter or summer weeds, we'll take care of them with a post product. You know, I'm just thinking, how often can we use a cover crop and maybe eliminate one herbicide pass? Maybe eliminate 2 herbicide passes. Maybe reduce the nutrients you need by 25, 50, 75% as you build your cover crop program, build your diversity program. My neighbor's soil, you remember the picture of the corn, I hope, with the residue, how dark green it is. Is that corn leaf dark green? Do you see where the flea beetles has put those little black marks on the leaves in the conventional tillage? And what else do you see in that picture? You see cracks in the soil. This is after a 6.5-inch rain 2 days before that. You know? And it's 91 degrees on a 90-degree day. These corn plants are shutting down, going to defensive mode. You know? Want to know why this corn only made 130 bushels to the acre last year. We have earthworms. Nice ones. You know, these are the ones you can catch really big bass with. You know. This is not native to Ohio. I just threw that in there because I really like the earthworm. I was in Temple, Texas, helping a 20-year-old trying to teach his dad how to use cover crops, and we put the shovel in the ground, that worm come out, and I had to have a picture of it. You know, that thing was 18 inches long. You know, just think how much good he can do. Joe talked about earthworms 3 or 4 per square foot, or 5 or 6 per square foot. I think you need 40 to 50. We have 60 to 70 on our farm. You know. In 4 years, we can actually turn our soil upside down and never use a piece of equipment. That's how much soil the earthworms will move. They pull nutrients down, they bring nutrients up. We haven't limed for 25 years. If you do have to lime, lay it on the surface, get earthworms there, they'll incorporate it a lot better than we can do with tillage tools. 1971, when I started, on the right-hand side of that picture was our soils. Cardington clay-based soils, 65% clay. Really tough. We're 22 miles from where they made all the best-selling pottery they ever sold in the United States. You know? We're 5 miles away from where they make all the bricks from the clay in the soil. 2014, when RCS was there, they took this clod of soil, did some work with it, and I don't know how they figured it out, but anyhow, they told me that there's 8.5% carbon or organic matter in that soil. And when we started, we had 0.5%. The Ohio State University, Penn State University, Iowa State University says we cannot change soils unless we do it for 5,000 years. I think somebody must be wrong. You know. I hope you can see it. But, oops, no, I did something. There it is. Well, anyhow, the clod on the left is our soils. The clod on the right is my uncle's. He's 97 years old. He's still farming. He's got 90 acres. He plants 90 acres of soybeans every year for the last 25 years because it's cheap. So that's a conventional clod of soil where it says conventional. This is what they call a slate test. You can do this at home. I advise you to try it. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes. Just go out in your field, pick up a clod of soil, probably, maybe 1 inch across or 2 inches across. Go to the side ditch where there's grass growing, or a fence row, or your permanent pastures. Take a clod out of that, put it in a container. This was 1 minute after those clods were immersed in the water. Why do you think the conventional clod dissipated in that short period of time? Because he had no glue. His soils are bacteria-driven. His soils are starving for nutrients. He has to put commercial-made fertilizer because he don't have anything. He has no organic matter. He has no critters in the soil. If we looked at that soil and wondered about how many critters he's got, if we did an evaluation on his farm, and he still hasn't changed, he has one starving 300-pound calf per acre. Can you imagine looking at a 300-pound calf that's starving? If you go to our farm, we have 4 cows and 4 calves, weight-wise, of activity underneath the ground. Here it is 5 minutes later. Why do we have phosphorus in the streams? Why are we worried about algae blooms in Lake Erie, Louisiana Basin? Because we're losing our nutrients, men and women. If we don't start soon, and you people might see it as quick as we do, but if we don't start soon in Ohio, and we have another nitrate problem in the city of Columbus, where the city of Columbus bought 2 million bottles of water every day for a week because the nitrates were too high in the drinking water. And U.S. News today says farmers are the cause of this problem. And we're 1% of the population. If we have another, 99% of the population is going to tell us we can't do this anymore. If we don't get proactive, and we don't start doing things to keep the soil where it belongs, whether it's water erosion or wind erosion, I don't care. There's going to be rules and regulations we don't like. I was in the Chesapeake Bay area a year ago, sat down with 165 farmers. Each one of them brought their notebook. They have to grow cover crops around the Chesapeake Bay. 98% of that soils in a 20-mile radius around the Chesapeake Bay all has cover. They have a nutrient plan book that's at least 4 inches thick. They have to validate every day what they do so that if they have a problem, they can prove it wasn't their fault. 85% of the time those farmers spend is doing book work. The rest of it is to make production. I don't want to have to do that. I love my neighbors. You know, you go to the coffee shop, and I don't go because I don't have time, but every now and then we'll get some people that comes. Like 3 months ago, we had 7 agronomists and an interpreter from Russia. And they were there while we were harvesting in the fall, so we let them drive the combine, you know. I was really lucky. These agronomists from Russia, they were 20-year-old girls, ladies. Well, looking ladies, too, let me tell you. And so she ought to see us when we went to lunch at the local Greasy Spoon, you know. There's about 26 farmers sitting there eating lunch during harvest time, and we show up, and I got this interpreter, and they're talking Russian to me, and I bought them for dessert an apple cobbler, you know. They'd never seen one with ice cream on it. And there's a big calendar in the coffee shop that says how many days or how many years till Dave Brandt gets sold out. And I think there's a lottery to see, you know. So far it hadn't happened. But this is one of the neighbors that goes there, and I stopped, that's my pickup truck. I saw that 3 years ago. And I stopped and I said, man, I want to congratulate you because I've never seen a piece of equipment this big. He didn't realize I was going to pick on him every time I go to a meeting, you know. But here's a 600-horse tractor, if you call it that, pulling a 14-foot tillage tool with 32-inch cutter blades on the front of it, a 42-inch prong behind that, a 36-inch coulter behind that, and 3 rolling baskets. And he says, David, I've solved my problem. I will have drainage from now on. You know? He says, we got fields here. This is a 90-acre field. Every year he harvests about 30 acres of crops out of 90 acres because the rest of it floods out and he can't figure out why. You know? Behind this tool, there was chunks of soil 4 foot square, 8 inches deep, that just flopped over. You know? I said, man, I love it. I said, you're doing fine. I said, how much fuel does that burn? He said, well, we're burning about 500 gallons in 8 hours. You know? I just kind of walked away and says, good luck to you. You know? So what happens is, as he does this, he's burning his carbon, he's burning his house. Can you imagine if you were the microbes in this field, or in your conventional fields, and you have a windstorm, a hailstorm, a fire event, an earthquake, volcanic rock, every 6 months through your field? How many times did you build your house before you move? You know? When this carbon dioxide leaves, all the organic matter leaves. One tillage pass will take organic matter from 3 to 2. The second tillage pass will take it to about 1 3/4. You guys are really lucky. I've drove for 2 days and seen nothing but black soils. You know? I assume you got organic matter. You were from the prairie. You know? You've only farmed it here since about 1810 or whatever, you know, about 200 years. Our soils are about another 100 years older. We had forest soils, so it had about 5% organic matter. In Ohio today, the average organic matter is 0.05. 0.05. Not picking on you guys, I'm going to pick on Iowa. When I was out there 2 years ago, we stopped at a little museum that talked about the buffalo roaming across, and it says, when the buffalo roamed across and they mob grazed, organic matter in Iowa was 14%. I went to Iowa State University. For our presentation, I asked the question, what is the average organic matter of your farms? Oh, Mr. Brandt, we're going to be at about 3.5 or 4. I said, you've done a great job, guys. In about 200 years, you've took 10 points of your organic matter away. What will you be in another 100 years? Will you be a desert? You know? What we do affects the soil. Let's try to take care of it. It's my uncle's farm, it's not ours, it's not the moon. You know, that's what he does. Gets his beans off, chisel plows it, he rows at 10 ton per acre per year. Last bean crop I took off for him made 27 bushel. He says, I got to change varieties, David. He says, we just keep going down and down. You know, I said, well, whatever you want to do, Unc. You know? But can you imagine leaving that open all winter? I won't say how many brown fields or black fields I've seen here. You know, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to make snurf? You know, black colored snow. You want to have some fun. I dare you to go out there and collect a 5-gallon bucket of your black snow. Put it somewhere so it evaporates or thaws out. Put whatever you got left, probably in a half-a-gallon styrofoam cup. Put some vermiculite in there and put a kernel of corn in it. Take a healthy soil or your wore-out soil, do the same thing. Guess what? Take your wore-out soil and put it in there. Guess what? It won't even sprout. That snow, the corn plant in a week will be 2 foot tall. That's how much nutrients in that snow from your fields or our fields if we're doing this kind of stuff. And I'm pointing 10 fingers back to us because we used to do it too, you know. So this is my uncle's fields. I told you it's bacteria-driven. That's the first line. So guess what that means? It's a bacteria-driven soil. The only way they can feed their crop is to buy commercial-made fertilizer. Because if you look down the list there, you got those big words that I can't pronounce other than the nematode, but there's zeros. Zeros there. Those 3 big words is what breaks down the organic matter, is what releases phosphorus, what releases potash in the soil, organically. If it's not there, you got to buy it. The bottom line, it says fungal to bacterial rotation, 0.00 whatever. That should be 1 to 1.6 in a good soil, or a mediocre soil. Ours happen to be 5 to 6, fungal to bacteria. Here we are, again, planting into this carpet. This is looking out of the cab. I just happened to take a picture of it. If you look real close, you'll see a little bitty line right there. That's the marker. We don't want to move that residue away. We don't want it to erode. So all you need to do is put a little mark there. You can see it. And I get a hell of a lot more corn in an acre on a crooked row than I do a straight row. You know? Yields go up when I plant. But there's 32,000 pounds of biomass, you know. Here's 48,000 pounds of biomass, 6 inches of residue. Now we're talking about green residue. Joe talked about 5,000 pounds of dry residue. We're probably looking at about 8,000 or 10,000 pounds of dry residue. I don't worry about what the dry is. I want to know what we're planting into, you know. Here's the results. That's the field of the first picture you saw, with no chemical, no fungicides, no insecticides, no nitrogen. If you look real close, there's just a few little winter annuals starting to show up. That's 30-inch corn, you know. That has to be non-GMO corn. I don't care. It could be GMO corn. Don't matter to me. I just think we're getting better response out of non-GMO corns with our healthy soils than we do with bacteria-driven soils. But if you look at the very top there, by the scales, that says the field, while we showed corn, was averaging 208 bushels to the acre. When I took the picture, where in the field, at that one location, it was running 270. What did I have in that field? Non-GMO corn at $112 a bag, 2.2 acres out of a bag. In round figures, we're just going to make it 50 bucks. We had $5 in roll in the cover crop. We had $27 in the cover crop and 30 bucks in harvesting. The net profit of this field was the best of any of the 70 fields I got. $436 net profit per acre. Well, I like them kind of figures. You know, makes the banker happy. Don't believe me, that's a yield map. I'm not very computer orientated, so you'll see some black lines in there, and evidently that's where I drove across the field after the tank got full, because we don't dump on the run. We don't have fields long enough we can get the auger out and dump the corn, let alone get the tank empty. you know? So, you know, this is a 15-acre field, that's what it looks like, you know? But you can read the chart. You know green's 200 plus, and the neat thing about it is, guess what? The red around the outside, that's where 35 turkeys ate. That's where 113 deer ate, you know? So what do? We triple plant the outside 8 rows to about 60,000, so you eat all that and won't go in it because it's too thick, you know? You want to solve some of these problems, think about how you're going to do it, you know? We're going to switch gears and talk about peas and radishes. I love radishes. They are a great soil loosener, you know. The tuber will be 18 to 24 inches deep. I like Joe's jackhammers. We've used them. The problem I got, Joe didn't ask me to come to supper tomorrow night, and I'm going to be here. Somehow he's going to mentor me enough to be here so I can drink beer. You know, somehow he's going to ask me to come, you know. But what we're looking at there, if you look, you got the radish and the taproot, then we got a root going down another 3 foot. But if you can see it really close, look at that hair root hanging on to that clod of soil. You know? Look how granular that soil is. That soil looks like cottage cheese. If your soil looks like cottage cheese, you've got pretty good soil health. If you take a shovel and pry it open, and it falls off in slabs an inch thick, that's compaction. You know. The Ohio State, and I got corrected 5 years ago, so I have to say the now. I don't know why. It must impress the hell out of them. But anyhow, this was a 5-year study of 5 different fields every year. We take a soil sample that we're planting. We give the soil sample to Dr. Feek. He does his magic wand with some kind of thing he does and comes up with these figures. So why on Dave Brandt's farm do I need to buy commercial made fertilizer? 230 pounds of nitrogen in the soil. Phosphorus, potash,